what I have found is that I need to know who I am and I need to respect who I am and I need to hold who I am in a loving, healthy, high regard. I can't go into magical thinking. I have to have discernment and I have to move with objectivity versus just letting anything go and going into people pleasing or going into, oh, this is fine. Oh, this is fine when it isn't fine. And that is all very important for me moving into this place of my life where it's not going to be just me again. Hello, my love. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast here on YouTube. I am going to ask you to take just a moment before enjoying this episode and go and hit the subscribe button. It not only helps the show, but it helps the channel. And I only want to continue to bring you incredible content and beautiful video content here on the YouTube. So just take a moment before enjoying the episode and hit subscribe. Thank you. Hello, my gorgeous. Welcome to another episode of Natalia, Benson, the podcast. So this is actually pretty interesting. I am filming in a completely new space and I'm just trying something new. I've realized something about having an Aries sun is that I like to I don't want to do what everyone else is doing if I can help it. And I want to just experiment and try different stuff. So I'm here at the Lighthouse campus. This is in Venice, and I've been a member here since March. And they have these amazing studios. And I just decided I wanted to start having like my home be my home. And I do very well as a manifesting generator to essentially just have like a place that I go. I get very invigorated when I'm working around other people. And I just thought this would be like fascinating. So, truth be told, especially if you're watching the YouTube, I don't know where I'm looking right now. Like, I'm literally just trying. We're just trying something new. But especially if you listen to the podcast on Apple iTunes or on Spotify, definitely head over to the YouTube. I'm going to be wearing some really gorgeous outfits thanks to my best friend, Shelly Carlson. She styled me for this little round of solo episodes that we're doing. And yeah, and once again, in Aries fashion, I am filming and recording during a Mercury retrograde. And I don't know why I keep doing this to myself, but this is just when it happens to land that it's time for me to film new episodes. So we're just going to give it a go and we're going to pray that all of our tech works. If you were with me at one of our more recent, I think it was in March, one of our solos, we had to re-record an entire episode 3 different times. So I'm just really a little prayer that I have when it's Mercury retrograde is I will literally ask for Mercury retrograde protection just give me a little leeway. So let's just put a little Mercury retrograde protection around this episode and through these beautiful solos that I'm going to be recording. So my loves, this is going to be an interesting, very powerful conversation. I am going to be getting ready to date again. If you've been on the journey with me over the last couple of years, you know that I lost my dad, I got a divorce, and essentially I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I actually started to date just way, way, way too quickly. And that was very humbling. And I'm going to talk about some things in this episode today that I've never really spoken about. So it's going to be quite powerful, but I'm very excited. But before we get going, I actually decided for this round of solos that I wanted to pull a tarot card. So I am going to, since I only have one hand, I'm doing a handheld. I'm just going to do a quick little just center in and I'm just going to pull us a card. Oh my God, I love this card for what we're talking about today. So the card for today is the Empress. And this is a Venus card. Actually, so incredibly perfect. If you're with me on the YouTube, you should be able to see it. one of my faves. So the Empress is a Venus energy. And what's so beautiful about the Empress is she really represents looking forward. She represents feminine capacity. She represents the maternal. She represents abundance. She represents fruitfulness. She is such a gorgeous, just a gorgeous representation and embodiment. The invitation in my guidebook around this card literally says to find a woman whom you admire and ask her for wisdom and ask her for guidance. So I happen to love this, and this is a gorgeous archetype for what I'm going to be exploring with you today in this episode. I'm a little nervous. You guys know that I get nervous before I talk about like just very, very vulnerable stuff, but I think it'll be beautiful. And my prayer, whenever I open up about my life or I open up about my journey, my prayer is always that my openness can help another woman feel less alone or to see herself in me and to see herself in my process and or to see herself in the outcome that I've created through said process. So the Empress really also in a lot of ways represents that because she represents the feminine, but she represents what it is to move from the maiden to the mother and to move from an embodiment of feminine wisdom and feminine power and the magic of the heart and being oriented on the optimism and the positive possible futures. In the card, she's literally like looking forward. They say that she's looking towards the dove and she's turned her head away from the sparrow in the background. And that's really what I'm doing if I think about it and all of the work I shared on Instagram. And I got a lot of questions about this, but that I've been in recovery for about a year. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that while not, breaking my anonymity, but just sharing sort of some of the high level aspects of that journey for me. And because it plays a really, really big role in me looking forward and moving away from the past. And in me taking accountability in what didn't work in my last relationship, the work that I've done on myself and with myself, and I continue to do, when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, no relationship ever could have survived me not taking care of this stuff internally. No relationship could have survived that. It doesn't matter if I was with the most perfect person in the universe, which they don't exist. Spoiler alert, they do not exist. It doesn't matter if I had been with the most perfect person on planet Earth. No relationship could have survived all of the things that I was holding. And that's been a really big part of my recovery journey is really looking at the past, putting it on paper and putting it to rest. And I'm very excited about what's next for me and what it is that I'll be creating through my discernment. So I've taken a full year off of dating men. I've been abstinent for quite a while as well. I just needed I've never done that before. I have always, and I think this is also so culturally normal, but I've just always had like something going on. There was like someone I'm dating, someone I'm interested in, someone I'm curious about, someone that like pulling on my energy in some capacity. And so to take a full beat and just to be with me, this has been like one of the most magnificent homecomings of my life. And to be honest, now that I'm going to be heading back into the dating realm, I've had grief. Like I've had moments where I'm like, oh my God, but I'm just feeling so great. Like I've just felt so good with it just being me. And now I'm going to be just available to an interpersonal dynamic with someone, whether we're dating and getting to know one another and we move into a relationship. I don't know how soon or how long that will be. That's on, God's time, but it's interesting because the feeling that I had, now I feel more excited, but when I first felt the pull and the call within me that it's time, I definitely feel like there was an aspect of me where I had grief. And I went through a few stages of grief in 24 hours because I was like, oh, but this is going to be the mastery for me, is just to be able to be available for this part of my life again while still maintaining my center. So, what I will talk about, and I was mentioning this for a couple minutes, but being in recovery, I got a lot of questions around that. And something that I will say is that if you're in like 12-step recovery, or whether you're in it, you're not in it, something just to know is that it's an anonymous program. Like they call it, like the flagship of all recovery programs is Alcoholics Anonymous. But you're not from what I understand and what I've been learning, to break anonymity, that's something that isn't typically advisable for so many different reasons that I won't get into, but also because when you're recovering from any kind of addiction, you need personal anonymity and you need to feel safe to be in rigorous truth. So when people have asked me what I'm in or what program I'm in, I don't share that. That's for me to know and that's for me to have, a relationship with. But what I will share with you is that essentially there are different kinds of addictions, of course, but the addiction that I've been healing is around process addiction. So it's not with substances. I had definitely had issues with that in my early 20s. If you babes know my story, I don't really talk about that much these days. But what I really recognized is even in my early 20s, when I had like substance addiction, really underneath it the entire time was process addiction and addiction to relationships. If you're standing at the edge of a major life, money, or business transition, and you know the next chapter requires a different level of support, this may be your moment to work with me one-to-one. There are two ways to do that. The first is my year-long total life transformation mentorship, a deeply supported journey where we work on your money, your vitality, and your visibility so the growth you create is embodied and sustainable. The second is my signature one-to-one money and business mentoring, focused strategic support to help you stabilize, grow, and lead your finances and business with clarity and confidence. Both are for women who value refinement and are ready to build a life and business with intention, time spaciousness, and depth. If you feel the call to work with me one-to-one, the application is waiting for you in the show notes. And so what I will say is the addiction that I've been healing at its core is an addiction to fear, an addiction to the idea that like there is nothing holding me in this universe, and really addiction to doing the same thing over and over and over and over, expecting some kind of different mythic result to occur by simply doing the same thing. So that's what I'll share about my relationship to process addiction, doing the same thing and thinking, oh, if I just keep doing this thing, that somehow magically, mythically, I'm going to get a healthier, better result. And so what's been so magnificent about being in recovery is really the surrender, most of all, surrendering to the idea that I am not alone in this universe, that something has me, something cares for me. I choose to call that force of love, I choose to call it God. Sometimes I call it the universe. I think that the word God can have a very loaded sentiment depending on your journey with faith, religion, whatnot. But for me, even just going through recovery, I've really healed my relationship to that word. And sometimes I call it the universe, sometimes I call it creative power. I don't think that it cares what or how, whatever pronoun you want to use for your creative power. I don't know that it cares what we call it. I think that what it cares about is that we know that it exists, and it exists in so many different expressions. And if you've ever, this is actually, I could go on such a little tangy poo about this, but if you've ever watched near-death experiences, which my YouTube algorithm is 10 out of 10. It's like, what do I have on there? I have like food prep, inspiration, and near-death experiences. That's my whole YouTube algorithm. It's like, how do we food prep? And then what's going on with the near-death experience, NDEs. I have a great episode about that too from last year with the guys who started the Coming Home NDE channel. It's one of my favorite NDE channels. But one thing that I'll share is that if you watch NDEs, near death experiencers, and they recount their experience of going to the other side, there is no singular experience. The experience reflects their consciousness. And that is what's so magnificent. And that's also a really big reason why recovery works, because there's no idea of there being one specific higher power. There's more so the invitation of what is your unique relationship to that energy? What do you call it? What does it mean to you? And that's been really powerful and really healing for me, because I've just realized I can't do this life by myself. I cannot do relationships by myself. I can't do my business by myself. I can't do my relationship to money by myself. I need a relationship to something vastly more beautiful, heart-centered, loving, and intelligent than my own best ideas on my own best day. And I've talked about this before, but there's a beautiful meme that I've seen on Instagram, like quite a bit, where it says my ideas, and it's like one butterfly. And then there's another one where it says God's ideas or the universe's ideas, and there's like infinite butterflies. And that to me has really been my journey in recovery. It's like I can have my own sort of limited idea of what will make me happy, or I can have my own limited idea of what I think my life should look like. But when I am willing to surrender and trust that there is a plan for my life, and I'm just here to do my footwork to get into alignment with that plan. And I share all of this, my loves, because this to me is so unbelievably paramount to me stepping into getting ready to date again and stepping into a part of my life where I've had a lot of experiences. I've had a lot of pain. I haven't always made the best choices, if ever. And so the day that I actually went into program, which was last year, I was really struggling and I was having really, really dark thoughts. And I was just in a pattern around the same kind of thinking I'd always been in. It's all on me. Nothing has me. Therefore, I need to do whatever it is that I need to do to get my needs met, whatever I need to do to get my needs met, whatever I need to do to get my needs met. Very, very self-focused. And that was making me suffer. And it's made me suffer in relationships more than I can even put into words, and more than I even feel honestly like safe to put into words. It's very vulnerable. And I dropped to my knees that morning, June 16th, and I literally just said, God, I need a miracle. And I didn't even really talk to God much then, if ever. The day I got divorced, I talked to God. The day my dad died, I talked to God. This day I talked to God. And I literally just said, God, I need a miracle. And then that night I, went to my first meeting, and that began my journey into healing and recovering and really breaking the addiction to fear and breaking the addiction to doing and making the same choices all the damn time, expecting a different result. And to me, my recovery journey has been a miracle, because I know that it's equipping me to move with discernment and to move with dignity and to move with self-respect. Especially just taking it over to astrology for a moment. I have a Venus in Pisces, and having a Venus in Pisces, it's a joy. Like I'm a lover and I'm a sweetie doodle marshmallow when you get to know me. You guys are probably very familiar with my personality. If you've been with me for a while, you probably see and feel the Venus Pisces along with my Aries. But I will say that boundaries have been such a rough journey for me. Pisces is essentially the embodiment well, it's the two fish swimming in opposite directions. But the way an astrologer described it to me a long time ago is he literally said, you know, if you think about a fish, they don't have any kind of defense mechanisms. They are literally just, there's no defense mechanisms on a fish. And so that also can be one of the unique characteristics with Pisces, and especially in a low unhealthy expression, is like the lack of boundaries, just like avoidance or swimming away or just the fawn. Those are very, let's just say, I just want to say more unhealthy expressions of that energy. Healthy expressions of Pisces are just as in healthy expression of every single sign, total magnificence. But at the same time, I know that in this area of my life, I have definitely experienced that part of me where it's like the boundaries just haven't been there. And because to have boundaries, what I have found is that I need to know who I am and I need to respect who I am and I need to hold who I am in a loving, healthy, high regard. Otherwise, like I actually heard someone say this recently. They said, if I don't understand myself, then how am I like moving from the space of self abandonment? If I don't have a self, then what am I abandoning? And what I found is with that Venus Pisces, there's been a lot of people pleasing and a lot of lack of boundaries. And this hasn't even just shown up for me in romantic dynamics. This has shown up for me in friendship dynamics. This has shown up for me in every area of any interpersonal dynamic in our lives is touched by our Venus placement. And especially as women, it's our receptive faculty. And I love having a Venus in Pisces. The deeper that I heal and the deeper that I respect and know who I am on a mind, body, spirit, energetic level, the deeper I love that placement because there is just so much magic in it. But I can't go into magical thinking. I have to have discernment and I have to move with objectivity versus just letting anything go and going into people pleasing or going into, oh, this is fine. Oh, this is fine when it isn't fine. And that is all very important for me moving into this place of my life where it's not going to be just me again, whether I'm dating for a while, whether I'm moving into a relationship after dating. This actually brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about is as I'm readying myself to date again, the whole focus for me is just moving slowly. I shared recently, I did a really powerful post essentially about what I've learned getting divorced like in my late 30s and what it taught me about relationships. And someone had made a comment basically that they had been around when I got into my last relationship and they felt that it moved very quickly. And it's funny because although I respect and know that me and my ex-partner, it was perfect. I needed it to grow. I'm so grateful every day for this person on so many levels, the lessons, the healing journey that it delivered me through, the maturity. I've talked about this a lot on the pod. But one thing that I will say is that on the other side of it, and looking back from this different lens of being 39, having a lot of experiences, going through the deep self-work and heart-led and God-led work of doing recovery, I really got to see, holy crap, we did move really fast. And I don't have any shame around the way that relationship unfolded, but it did move quickly. But at the same time, when I look back at my true motives, I was so tired. I was so exhausted from being in Los Angeles and from putting myself through just so many heightened emotional experiences. And I recognize that the past version of me ran very anxious. And that's something that I want to talk about is like I have a very, I would say a very rudimentary understanding of attachment styles, but I think as a woman, it's like actually extremely, extremely important to have an understanding of your attachment style. But something that I've been learning just through different podcasts, reading a really good book by Pia Melody called Facing Love Addiction. She talks a lot about anxious attachment. She talks a lot about avoidance, people who are avoidance, people versus people who are more anxiously attached. And I think as women, especially if we've struggled in the area of really discerning a healthy person or being healthy people ourselves, I think that honestly, there is such a wonderful, wonderful, empowering gift and understanding how you more naturally attach, especially if you haven't done, let's say, a ton of extensive inner work, whether it's therapy, whether it's EMDR, whether it's going into recovery if that's needed for you. I mean, there's so many different modalities, hypnotherapy, like with my love Leo, who was just on the show, but ways, and I think it's a melange of things. Like for me, it hasn't been just like, oh, there's one thing that's like helped me to better understand myself. There have been so many different things that have helped me have a healthier relationship to the parts of me who want to move quickly or who want to partner with people who maybe we don't have the same vision or we don't have the same values. So my whole thing moving forward is slow moving. And my suggestion, and again, this is going to be fun to unfold this journey with you, babes, but moving slow is going to be a huge hallmark of the journey that I go on because, especially as an Aries, holy poly poo, like we can move real quick. And especially having a Venus in Pisces, like that lover energy. And then, like I said, in its lower unhealthy expression, the lack of boundaries, kind of going with the flow of someone else. That is going to be really powerful and magnificent for me to test and explore what is next for me and how I will balance those dynamics in my personality. And it's going to be a journey, but I have a lot of support around me and I have a loving relationship with, my version of higher power. And I talk to God universe every single day. Every single day we have a conversation and it's really quite powerful because when I look back on my journey, it's fascinating to me because this energy and this relationship has always been alive in my life, but I just didn't necessarily know what to call it. I've called it a lot of different things. Sometimes we call it luck, sometimes we call it fate, sometimes we call it a mistake, sometimes we call it God, sometimes we call it an angel, an ancestor, whatever. But I have always had a relationship to something that has been guiding my path all along and has been helping me make choices. And even when it seems like the choice is like, usually it's when I'm in my self will that the choice gets really cuckoo. But I found that when I surrender, I get guided to exactly what it is that I need to help me heal, grow, and evolve, even if that looks like a crash course in those things to my own mind. There's a card in the tarot called the Tower, and the Tower is literally a figurative image of like the burning down of the ego. And there in my deck specifically, what if I pulled and it was the Tower? That would be so cool. But the card in the Tower deck, in the Tower card in my deck, there's literally an eye and they say that it's like the eye of creation. So it's like, even as it looks like things are burning down and the ego is burning down, the eye of creation is still there. And that's, I think, such a powerful, important thing for us to remember is that even when it can look like we're moving through destruction or a part of us is burning down or an idea that we had or a projection that we had is dying before our eyes, the way I see it is that there has always been an aspect of me that is guided by this benevolent, loving force that has a bigger plan for what it is that I'm doing here. And the relationships that I've had, the people that I've met in my life, they have all been a part of that greater plan, helping me heal and evolve. If you're a woman who makes money or wants to make more of it, but still feels overwhelmed, disconnected, or unsure how to actually lead your finances, I created Magical Women in Money just for you. MWMM is where money meets self-trust, strategy meets intuition, and women stop outsourcing their financial power. Inside, I teach you how to organize your finances, understand your faulty money habits, align your earning with your astrology, and build a real wealth for your future without shame, pressure, or feeling like you're behind. This is a personal finance meets astrology method that works. It's grounded, empowering money work for women that feels approachable and soulful. Join the waitlist for Magical Women in Money membership, MWMM. The link is in the show notes. So something that I feel not only that I'll be exploring, but what I want to offer is the value of discernment. So if there's one thing as I look back on my history with men, they tell you very, very quickly who they are. They tell you, if they don't tell you within the first 24 hours by the things they say, by the things that they do, they will show you within 90 days. And what I recognize, and this is just going to be like my suggestion, listen to and pay attention to when you may be making excuses for a man's behavior. Because, and this is not anything, I love men. I have wonderful men in my life. I have a brother. I know what healthy, beautiful masculine is. My ex-partner on so many levels was a wonderful person. I've experienced amazing men. I've experienced also very unhealthy men too. And there are unhealthy men, there are unhealthy women. So this is not a man bashing whatsoever. This is just, I think, for us to have healthy awareness of how men function, because they are very clean and very clear in being who they are very quickly. Even if they have a personality disorder like narcissism, sociopathy, they will still on so many levels show you by their behavior, more than anything by their behavior, what they're about, what their values are, and how they will treat you as you get deeper into the relationship. And what I found with myself is that making excuses for a man's behavior or telling myself a different story or not being willing just to see what is there, that is probably how I've gotten myself into more not fun situations than anything, is literally just by bypassing my discernment, bypassing my intuition. Now, I think that there's a very, very big difference between your intuition and then your fear-driven ego that's rooted in your patterns. And for me, again, and this has just been looking at my past and being able to just explore like what's gone on, I've really seen that my intuition, it never scares me. It doesn't give me these like looping pattern fears around relationships, people, scenarios, situations. It just doesn't do that. But one thing that I will say is that what I've found is that if I am in a fear looping pattern and I'm in a place where I'm feeling like I'm projecting my past onto a specific person, that usually is for me to be able to do the healing and move back into discernment and really decide, is this person genuinely doing these things that is the exact same replica of something I've already experienced? Or am I projecting my fears that they will do something in the future? And this is, and I certainly don't have all the answers. It's going to be in real time as I bring this to you, babes. But as I look back, I really recognize that where there were moments where my intuition was absolutely telling me things and showing me things that my past projections just wanted to look past because there was something that I wanted. I didn't, did I not want to be alone? Like whatever the song and dance was at the time. But now I really recognize that if I just take a man at face value by his behavior and his actions, that's going to mitigate like 99% of the imbalances that I've experienced, because making excuses or like painting a red or yellow flag green, turning it into a different color is just something I'm not willing to do anymore. And this doesn't mean that someone needs to be perfect, but I will be dating according to my values and I will be dating according to my vision. And I will also be dating according to self-love, self-worth, and self-acceptance. And it takes time to get to know someone. And so what I want to say as well is, man, this can be so controversial to say but I'm just going to say it. If you run anxious, like if you have more of like an anxious attachment style, I like readjust, gets uncomfortable before I say this. If you have more of an anxious attachment, really slow down on the physical intimacy. Why? Because so often what I found is that if I shortcut and move into physical intimacy too quickly, what happens? So often we bypass so many important value-led discerning details around, is this person really right for me? Does this person add and provide value to my life? Am I a healthy version of myself? Now, mind you, when I say healthy, I'm not saying, are you a perfect version? Am I a perfect version? What I am saying is that, I mean, this to me is one of the most important things about all of this. If we can slow down on the physical part, then we can really see, is this person suited for me? Do we make sense? Is this someone that brings out the best in me? Do I bring out the best in them? And it doesn't mean that we'll be void from problems, but it does mean that I'm going to be making concerted, clear decisions free from all of the feel good chemicals that can really tie you to someone who just isn't right for you. That's going to be my offering. And I would love to hear what you babes think about this, because of course, everyone runs differently in this way. Some people can be physical quickly and not only be with the person for a long time or whatever the scenario is, but they also can be physical with someone and not get so tied and involved. So discernment, I think, is able to stay with us. And I think you have the potential of being in something healthier when you can just slow your roll on the physical dynamic and not try to fabricate something that isn't there just in the conversations that you're having. Because yeah, and look, I'll report back. I'll report back. But I think that we get to slow down. I think that, and I say this also more so for myself, I think that I get to slow down and really see, and I'm in a really unique kind of potent part of my life because I'm 39 and I want to have a partner and I want to have a family. But to me, having the right partner to create a family with, that to me is absolutely everything. That to me is the number one. And then the choice and the decision to create a family together is number two. And I'll report back. So definitely a full spectrum episode, and I'm curious your babe's thoughts. Like, I love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how this lands and where you are. I mean, I'm sure many of you listening to this are likely, maybe you're single or you're exploring dating or you are dating. And maybe you're in a younger season of life than me. Maybe you're much older than me. Maybe we're the same age, but either way, I think that these things are universal. And I wish that I had learned the slow down discernment way freaking sooner. I think it would have saved me from a lot of like really uncomfortable lessons, but it's all perfect. And I'm excited just to see what this next chapter brings and what I'm creating in my life in this new season. And I honestly feel very grateful to have another opportunity to choose from the woman that I am now. And because I love her and I respect her. And my biggest thing is that I'm going to be taking care of her. I'm going to be, when I choose to involve myself with another person, with a man, that's a commitment. And it's one that I want to step into as a whole version of me. And I've never done that before. I've never done that. 39 years, never done that. I always was coming in kind of like, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to like complete some aspect of me that I don't think that I have, versus it'll be really beautiful to be in this more complementary type of experience. So I'm excited. This is a vulnerable one for me, babes. You probably could hear, I think I was tripping on my words a little. I'm just like, oh my God. And this is a very different setup for me. Like, we're doing this on the couch. We've got the mic. We've got all these screens around me. So hopefully you receive something really beautiful from this episode. I would love to hear what landed. And something that I do want to share, just switching gears a little bit. So this September, I'm opening the doors to something called the Revenue Room. This is going to be a year-long mentorship for women who already have a business, but know that they're leaving money on the table. Together, we're going to simplify your offers. We're going to build a clear customer journey, and we're going to create a business that generates more consistent revenue, so you're no longer wondering what to sell next. There are only going to be 9 spaces available, and if you'd like to work more closely with me over the next year, I'd love to have you join the wait list. So what this is going to include is it's going to include a year to MWMM, Magical Women in Money membership. It's going to include 4 quarterly, so once a quarter, one-to-one strategy sessions with me, and quarterly mastermind calls with this group of 9 incredible entrepreneurial women. So I will have the waitlist in the show notes for you. This is coming up soon because this episode is going to be releasing in August, and we'll be opening the doors for this in September. So if you would like to work with me more closely, I would be honored to get my eyes on your business. If there's one thing I was just thinking about today, I've had this business specifically for about 8 years now. And I have a very, very stable business that pays me to live and pays me to be who I'm here to be as a soul. And the way that I've been able to do that is by having healthy business architecture, what I like to call the business ecosystem. So even just being able to sit here on a Monday afternoon and like, this is my work and this is my job, it's taken me time to get here specifically. But what I will say is that it's just such a gift to build something structurally that supports you and supports you being the total expression of who you are, pays you to be who you are. And that is not just rooted in manifesting at all. The vision has to be there, yes, but that is rooted in a healthy relationship to money and a healthy business structure. And so that is really what we'll be focused on in the Revenue Room. So I'm going to go ahead and land this here, my loves. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I hope that you loved the episode. Thank you for exploring this with me, and I will see you in the next episode. Love you so much.